But I'm interested in a way in another thing, which is you raised the question of all this dystopian science fiction going on. And the so-called golden age of science fiction was very kind of upbeat, utopian. And from Star Maker, which is about as utopian as it gets, and he was kind of a utopian socialist and whatnot. Generational concerns seem to have this kind of countervailing, they're like, I want to be the mirror to the understandings that I grew up with. And so the understandings that a lot of the Golden Age folks grew up with was a fucking world war that was truly awful. It was really devastating. Talk about a dystopia. Let's just burn a lot of the major cities in the world right to the ground. They lived through that. But the current dystopians didn't grow up with anything like that. They grew up with technology getting better and better, the economics getting better and better, all the Steven Pinker world getting better and better. Childbirth is not killing women the way it used to do all over the world. Basically, people getting out of poverty is the main event in the world. And these guys are going, well, just a goddamn minute. And then telling the counter story. Is the counter story part of what science fiction people do?
I actually think we have a kind of Soviet level of dystopia. Because if you went and you hung out in the Soviet Union, you could make the same arguments. It's like, well, actually, there's more roads, and there's better buildings, and the food has improved a lot since World War II. So why aren't you actually happy and upbeat about being a Soviet, right? And in the writers' union, they're rewarded for that. It's like, oh yeah, you wrote a great novel about a tractor, It's like they really brought in the crops, It's like it's super, But it was the lies that corroded people's morale. And I think that's our actual problem now. People are dystopian because they know that the major problems we face are being papered over, right? That they're just not, we're not dealing with the problems that we have. So there's a loss of legitimacy among institutions. And you've got people who basically are dystopian, but they're dystopian in the level of Soviet guys mumbling black humor jokes to one another, while avoiding the situation, right? And I like to make historical analogies, but they don't always work perfectly or well. And there are a lot of people in Russia right now who are actually pretty upbeat about the situation, even though they're proud, right? They really feel like they're off their deathbed and kind of laying out with two fists. They're ethno-nationalist Russian enthusiasts, and a lot of them are Christian fundamentalists, Orthodox Christian fundamentalists. And they do this even though there's a snowstorm of official lies from the regime. They just lie about everything routinely, sitting like guys with nerve gas in London. They're lying so openly and with such brazen lack of good faith that it's almost like gloating. And they're actually gloating with the lies at this point, right? So, Russians used to be the most dystopian sci-fi writers, especially if they escaped Russia. Whereas now the most optimistic ones are probably Chinese. And you would not want to go to China and sort of say, oh, what a great place. Normally you would not say I'm going to China for the better way of life that they have. But, the Chinese sci-fi writers are just punching way above their weight right now. And this really is their golden age of, science fiction. And they're not writing dystopian stuff. In fact, they're writing just really pretty good novels. Things that are kind of have emotional depth, and they've got vision, and they're not comic booky or stupid. They're not serving the regime. They're really literateurs. It's like they could really do it. They're in pretty good shape, right? So how are you going to explain that? Okay, I don't know. I don't have a grand theory, but it interests me a lot that they're around. And they're not utopian. The utopian thing is overblown. People who wrote commercial science fiction tended to write stuff with upbeat endings, especially in the US. But the best known works of imaginative fantasy are 1984 and Brave New World and other very serious, somber kind of geopolitical novels that are all about oppression and torture and official lies and and deceit and hate and murder and phoniness and so forth. And these are the things that really these are the ones that are kind of sunk down on the cultural level. You see Orwellian around, you would see Ballardian around. You don't really see Buck Rogersian, you know. Kind of, it just seems childish, right? So I don't know. I mean, it's a matter of temperament. You know, guys of my era, I mean, cyberpunks were into dark euphoria and kind of, we're not into sense of wonder, we're into like ecstasy and dread. Right? I mean, ecstasy and dread is stuff that you see a lot in cyberpunk texts. It's like, it's really horrible and like, but really, really amazing, and like, but also really horrible, but like, just fantastic. I can't get my head around it. It's like, except his leg's been sawn off, you know, and it's like, and this is kind of a very deliberate period sensibility that, you know, sort of emerged from the 1980s, and you know, you could see it in film and the way people dressed, and you know, that kind of thing. And you know, it was fun to do, because it kind of hadn't been tried out. But I don't have a magic solution for it, and I also don't think that optimistic science fiction actually makes anybody optimistic. I don't think that helps. I don't think that helps with the problem at all. I mean, what makes people optimistic is something to be enthusiastic about. That's when people are really optimistic. They don't even ask if they're in a good mood. They just hop out of bed because they want to go do it. And we don't have a lot of things to be optimistic, to be enthusiastic about. Like Moore's Law was something, or the internet was something. But this is like your uncle's job now. We don't have like something that like really makes people like hop out and make it happen. And if we did, the oligarchs, you know, would hit it on the head or buy it, or you know, or suppress it in some way. And I think people know that. So that's the actual what's the right word for it? Malaise. That's the Carteresque malaise of our era. We're not authentic.